hello.
Buongiorno, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this second session here in Rome at the Carrier Community Telco Infrastructure Summit. The topic of this session could be considered odd versus the main, let's say, infrastructure wholesale issues discussed in the first session. But I do believe the Carrier Community Management is right to add two basic technologies / services / industries that are gaining a lot of relevance for our future telecom industry, especially considering how these technologies, the 5G, private 5G, and the cybersecurity can affect the life of enterprises. So first of all, a few words on for introducing myself. I am Alessandro Forcina. I am a partner at Cambridge Management Consulting, a British company, a boutique British company specialized on consulting in the telecom world. I had quite a long experience in the telecom industry in Sparkle, so there are here a lot of old friends, and then in GSMA and in a German company. So first of all, I'd like to introduce the panelists that will join me addressing these key technologies. Please, Matteo.
Thank you, Alessandro. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Yes, sorry. My voice is so high that I can speak without this microphone. Sorry. Thanks, Alessandro. Thanks, everyone. Good morning. My name is Matteo Del Corno. I do sales for Cato Networks. I don't know if you know, Cato Networks is the leader in the SASE market. And I'm taking care of France, Spain, and Iberia in Italy. We are a quite young company, 7 years old, but so fastly growing into the market. We raise 500 million from the markets, and we have a capitalization of 2.5 billion. So we are so young, but so strong and huge, and we are becoming the leader, and we are the leader of the SASE market.
Please, Lionel, it's up to you.
Buongiorno, everyone, and I'm very happy to be in Rome. Firstly, I want to say that. My name is Lionel Ho. I'm from Singapore Telecoms. So I cover two portfolios in my daily role. I'm primarily a solution architect, and I lead a team of solution architects where we use 5G, we use SD-WAN, SASE, public cloud, private cloud, cybersecurity, the works, right? And I provide these solutions for our large enterprise as well as our government customers, right? So that's really my day job, right? But I wear a secondary hat as well, and this is also a very important hat. I constantly look out for cutting edge technologies, and I introduce it into my organization. Together with these cutting edge technology vendors, we develop the products, right, and integrate them into our network, providing these services to our customers. So I'll be very pleased to meet all of you partners, potential partners who we can work with over the next 2 days. Thank you.
Bertrand, you already introduced yourself, but a few words again for the audience.
Yes. So hello, everybody. So Bertrand Lacour, I work for Blue Planet, which is a division of software division of Sienna, which is an optical manufacturer. And in Blue Planet, we offer a portfolio of software solutions around the OSS, so operating support systems, that covers network automation, as we discussed earlier, inventory and assurance. So my presence here is justified today, I would say, because we also work with not only fixed but also mobile operators, and we work with mobile operators around 5G. We have solutions on 5G that are, for example, facilitating the deployment of the network slicing concept that you may have heard of. And we also work on SD-WAN. We are providing solutions, or I would say an overarching solutions on top of SD-WAN vendors. When, for example, an operator, CSP, wants to contract with multiple SD-WAN vendors, they quite often need a software layer on top that will facilitate the orchestration of these SD-WANs. So we don't provide cybersecurity as such, but we actually work with quite a lot of cybersecurity companies.
Merci, Bertrand. Grazie. So for this session, I'd like to follow a sort of a top-down approach. So starting from which are the basic scenario that we see, the basic trends that we see for enterprises requesting telecom services. So on the one hand, on the mobile side, there are the deployment in the due course of course, 5G technologies, the raising of data center services. Daniele, a few minutes ago, correctly pointed out there is no way back, and he's fully right. A number of SD-WAN offering, from all the telcos in different flavors, and of course a rising threat in terms in the cybersecurity arena. Is not only, let's say, in the industry, but even in the press, in the normal press. So my question, first of all, to Lionel is, what is the Singtel perspective in terms of strategic views on how Singtel, how a telco can interconnect at a strategic level? Which technology should consider for optimizing the enterprise request services?
That's a very good question, and a very large question, which a lot of my customers ask me as well, right? So and engaging the head architect and all that, this is a common question I get from them. So really, there are so many elements within a network, right? And certainly these are covered by Singtel as well. Firstly, I like to look inside out, right? So within an organization, the applications are getting more complex, right? They're getting more data hungry, like all the other speakers were mentioning before. And we know as well, right? Data center services are now, the workloads are now being pushed into the cloud. So that portion is a large part to look at. So that's number one, right? Number two, once you have all these workloads pushed out regionally, right? You certainly have to look at the security aspects as well, right? Because you are now diversifying. You're now diversifying where your locations are, right? And you need to secure them. Then how do you access all these workloads, right? Obviously we are here, and one of the topics here is 5G. 5G is gradually increasing, right? The use of 5G is increasing in many regions, right? Not all. Geographically, I think we're looking at the efficient use of 5G, potentially 20 to 30% globally. We see this being implemented, right? Largely, it is still very much fixed circuits. So some that as an overview at the moment, right? So fixed circuits, that's what we're looking at. Moving nearer to the edge, there is certainly the element of SD-WAN, right? So we all know much about SD-WAN now, right? We know it's wonderful in integrating or aggregating rather cost-effective WAN links, and then through the box providing businesses with business-grade and high-grade traffic throughput, and with a high level of security as well, right? So yeah, I would say as a whole, right, these are the certain elements we need to look at and how the world has changed, right? Obviously with 5G, we've now recognized that, hey, look, yes, as good as the technology is, workloads are now very much deep into the cloud. How do we then bring all these data processing nearer to the end user, right? Let's not talk about enterprise, but let's look at, if we talk about items like robotics, AR, VR, these will require large amount of data to be processed and processed in a timely manner. How do we do this, right? Certainly, I'm sure all of you have heard of multi-access edge computing, right? I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little bit, but these are certainly some of the bigger topics which my team, our organization are working on at the moment. So yeah, just want to stop there.
Thank you, Lionel. Bertrand, yeah. the blue Planet perspective?
Yeah. So we see a bit of 5G activity in some parts of the world. I mean, it's not widely spread, but on I'd say the enterprises and CSPs are definitely seeing or we're seeing a lot of interest for rolling out SD-WAN, which has now been widely tested and proven. What we see is a need because the CSPs tend to have multiple SD-WAN vendors, as I just mentioned. So it's enterprises want to have a firewall from I don't know. I'm going to mention some competitors, I'm sorry, but from Fortinet or Palo Alto, etc. And they want to pick and choose. And then we see CSPs having to provide multiple solutions in their network, which adds complexity. It would be much simpler for them to stay with one, but because they have enterprise customers that want to pick and choose, then the CSP end up having to manage multiple SD-WAN vendors quite often. And that's adding a bit of complexity. So we see our role, if you want, to help them from that point of view. So we see a widely, wide adoption of multiple type of SD-WAN providers.
Merci. Thank you, Bertrand. The perspective, the strategic perspective from a SASE vendor like Cato Networks. Okay.
Yeah, the question is very interesting. I think we are, as Cato Network, a SASE solution provider, we have definitely the best position for addressing such a complexity that enterprises are moving forward. If enterprises are more complex, you have application everywhere, user everywhere, data center everywhere. And as Cato, we are a cloud service provider, so we don't care if they come from one site or another site, if it's a user, is a data center, is a cloud application. So we are completely transparent. And this is a huge advantage because by having such an architecture and framework, you can keep focus. The IT manager and CIO can keep focus on developing their infrastructure without thinking anytime if the infrastructure they want to develop fits the kind of security and SD-WAN they deploy everywhere. This is very important because it gives customer a lot of freedom, which is exactly what you have, I think, to tell your customers. I remember when the question on the previous panel was about how is complex the life of any telco providers that have to deal with so many customers' complexity. We are here with the cloud solution, with SASE, to simplify the life of the telco provider, that they can focus on integration, focus on deployment and networking, things that are their core business. We take care of SD-WAN, we take care of security from the cloud as a service, like Netflix. You choose the service you want, you get the service. Everywhere, anytime, from any edge.
Matteo, in your answer, you mentioned the role of CIO or CISO.
Yep.
Now, from that, my first question, going a step down, considering again only the security issues, and considering the work, the role of a CIO is much more complex because considering the overall company sustainability, the threats are increasing, the skill of the staff maybe is not always 100% up to date. The number of outputs from the service increases, and we know that the output should be orchestrated. So, Matteo, the guidelines a CIO, a CISO should follow, trying to meet all these requirements.
Yeah, the answer is in the question. You mentioned how many different activities a CISO or a CIO have to deal today. Complexity of custom. The users are connecting from everywhere. I'm now connecting from this hotel. I will be from the train tonight. I will be from my home tomorrow maybe, or visit another customer from their network. And I have to access all the infrastructure, all the application. And again, application infrastructure, the CIO have to have the freedom of choosing the infrastructure they love. or the application they love. See, if a CISO is fully focused on choosing technology and updating technology, managing technology, taking care of updating the systems, new signature, test and pilot the signature before putting online and such things, I think is losing this focus, which is have a whole understanding on from where the risk should come and avoid the risk and have a strategy to avoid the risk. This is the work of the CISO and CIO, not to update a firewall. So a service which is completely from the cloud, it allows CIO and CISO to keep focus on their core activities, which is allowed the business user to have in a secure way their application, rather than updating firewall, buying a platform, changing the platform every 3 years. You have to renew new tender. And this is something that is really defocusing the CISO and the CIO. We are the solution, is the solution SASE that allow them to keep focus on where the problems comes, the needs of the business users in a secure way.
Let's listen to the idea, the answer from a major service provider like Singtel. Lionel, get in touch with customers, speaking to CIO and to CISO. So which is the feeling that you get from these people as major request?
That's a very good question. Now, speaking to CISOs, right? Since the network has evolved, right, with internet, public cloud gateways, SD-WAN, right? Gone are then the traditional setups of having a private MPLS network right in the middle and only having 3 breakouts to the internet, and then only needing to potentially guard, right? Put a next-gen firewall in these 3 breakout locations, let's just say. Gone are those days, right? The defense of the network is now pushed out further into the edge towards where the users are. So this is really keeping the CISO awake at night, right? Suddenly they need to rethink and rechannel and re-strategize how they will need to protect this network, right? That's the biggest problem that's facing the CISO today, right? Obviously with that, budgets have also changed, right? Not that those gateways are going to go away. They still have their data centers. Number one, budget, right? There's a head scratcher. We always talk about costs, right? I'll come back to that a little bit later. But then how then do you secure your network? Now, every single day, the threats are getting more, right? So recently with the activities between Ukraine and Russia, we won't go into politics here, but we certainly see an heightened activity of attacks as well. This is real, right? We also know where the source are. And there are different exploits being used at the same time. So is technology going to help? Yes, to a certain degree, yes. Now, I want to touch on the buzzword which you've all heard, zero trust model or architecture. That holds extremely true, right? As Matteo mentioned, right? You can only do so much with technology. But what's important here is the governance and the zero trust model. That is ultra important, right? There are so many there's so many threats coming in different arenas, right? So what I'll also say is this, right? When a CISO speaks to me and says, goes like, look, I need to make sure it's 100% safe, right? And we all know security people will only say, well, we will never say, look, it's 100% safe. We will use the word mitigate, right? The word here is always to mitigate. So you'll be hit sooner or later, right? Now, on the architecture front then, right? You asked me, what's the best model these days, right? There's lots of standard technologies out there. There's a lot of open standards these days. I guess the word here is go with the best of breed, right? Enterprises, security vendors, they go through a cycle as well, right? Essentially, these are all soft skills within security vendors. The people will move between vendors, right? And we track them in Singtel as well to see where the good people are going. And it's a cycle, right? So what I'll say to my customers is, hey, look, don't always look for a particular vendor. Go with the best of breed, reevaluate them from time to time, right? Diverse your security setup as well. Don't just go with one, right? And block them at different areas as well. Identify where your threats are coming from, right? That's very important, right? I just had a customer come to me a couple of months ago. Strangely enough, he tells me, I think I'm getting attacked from within my enterprise, right? From another subsidiary, right? From another country. Can you help me do something about that? So if you look at a standard framework or standard structure, these are something which you will really never pick up because it's coming from your internal LAN, right? So speak to your CISO, right? Find out where they are. You need to advise them as well. So I think to answer your question, and in general, the CISOs are hit from everywhere. When LAN, right? And when there's a political issue going on, they get hit even more. So I think zero trust model is the best. Now, for some of you who don't know what zero trust is, it means only provide the people who need the information, that particular information. Don't open up the entire network to them. That's a summary of zero trust. I think I'll just end here. Thanks.
Thank you, Lionel. For sure, later on, we will come back to the zero trust network access. I see basic ingredients, let me say, of a SASE model. But coming back again, Bertrand, your feeling, your perspective of a CISO, a SISO guideline to be followed for guaranteeing security and a sustainable company.
Yeah, well, from my point of view, if you want, the CISO has been an interlocutor, someone we speak to, quite recently. We used to speak mainly to CTOs and people dealing with the network. So we just to echo what you said, Lionel, is the role of the CISO has tremendously changed. And it's really someone that we have to engage with very early on in our conversations, and we see security being at almost the priority number one now in all the conversations. So what the role of the CISO has changed, how we engage with them, and what we talk about. We even have to, for example, as a software company, we have to share the coding and explain how it's secure and show it cannot be breached, etc. So there's tremendous due diligence that is done on security aspects, and all of that is managed by the CISO. So yeah, it's I wouldn't like to be a CISO today.
Okay, now I'd like to make a step ahead, considering 5G, and I'd like introducing the subject, reading some data, fresh data that I found from on the 5G, let's say, development from the infrastructure side as well as on the customer side. So I'm going to make reference to a Dell'Oro report of a few weeks ago. So it was mid of August, so very fresh. So according to Dell'Oro, from 22 to 26, the cumulative revenues from hosting 5G workloads in the public cloud is equal to 4.6 billion euro, with a compound annual growth rate 88%. 4.6 billion euro to be paid by telcos for hosting the 5G workloads in a public cloud. To be compared with the always Dell'Oro, the same source, the overall, let's say, cumulative investment in mobile networks, again on 5 years, equal to 50 billion. So now coming back even to what discussed few in the previous session, the impact of 5G, 5 billion from Dell'Oro, and this 5 billion, nearly 10%, is given for moving all the workloads to the public cloud. They also made an example, a research, Dell'Oro, on how many telcos has put their own 5G standalone, of course, I'm speaking standalone Open RAN, in the public cloud. So it could be Google, it could be AWS, Microsoft, and so on and on. And how many have put in their own cloud? 1 out of 27 has used the public cloud. Let me add that after this research, a second telco has used. So I could say 2 out of 28 has used the public cloud, whereas 26 has relied on telcos, has decided to rely on their own cloud. So these are data on the infrastructure side. The second part that I like to share with you is on the customer side. And I make reference to a research of a few months ago from Berger Institute. There were at the end of 2001, nearly 1,000 private LTE network, 1,000 on this planet. And they foresee, Berger Insight, an increase of 10 times by the end of 2026, LTE plus going to nearly 13,500, LTE plus 5G private. And the last data that I'd like to share with you that as of today, there are nearly 250, 350 private 5G networks, mainly for trial, testing, and so on and on. So having said that, in terms of infrastructure and let's say customer side, my question to my panelists is how a telco can drive these trends, offering as much as possible good services to 5G, and how a customer can exploit. It's clear that in terms of 5G private, only the top of the market is interested. I am aware of that. But there are some issues to be discussed in terms of security. And again, I make reference to a press release issued last week from a German company, Security Research Lab, and they say, in short, that the telcos are not capable to configure 5G SA standalone networks in the public cloud because they have no experience. And they breached a number of, acting as a red team. The red team is the attacking. So they play the role of attacking, hacking companies, and they breached more than one telecom network. So having said that, considering all this issue, considering even the standardization from 3GPP, which is late, my question to my panelist, Lionel, let's start if you like.
Sure.
So again, how Singtel can exploit 5G, considering this overall scenario and considering the customer request.
Sure, sure. So I think there was quite, Alessandro, you highlighted a couple of statistics there. I think it's a bit difficult to pull those numbers, but I think Singtel is probably aligned with those numbers you've mentioned, right? And I'm pretty glad to also say we were not one of those telcos that got hacked by these hackers, right? And here's how we do it, and really our approach as well. Maybe let me start from our enterprise customers' point of view, right? We will always recommend, right, our customers to use standard technologies or standard-based technologies rather, right? The likes of 3GPP, right? To base their design work off, right? And to base their network off. Although the cost benefits, right, of an open RAN standard, right, seems to be really attractive, but they really have to bear in mind, and this is how we advise them, right? It is the performance is certainly one, right, and certainly that carries a high level of risk as well. Not only just performance risk, but certainly security risk as well. Right, it's still early days. I know Open RAN has even kind of a standardized, right? But still, it is still very much early days. So so that's with an enterprise perspective. Now, from Singtel and a telco perspective, likewise, right? We should always design a network based on standard technologies, right? Standard-based technologies. We should really monetize, right? all our investments based on this stable and standardized platform first, but we should certainly always push towards, open standards to see how we can drive increased margins and be cost effective as well through all these open standards. So I think as a general guiding, general based guideline, this is how we will approach, right, such a strategy, right? Once again, right, the zero trust element comes in a lot. So as our customers design these 5G based setups, the advice is always, hey, look, right, secure it, right? As we secure it as well, right, we look at the strategy of securing is also different between the mobile user, the 5G mobile user, to an enterprise user who perhaps is using the 5G as a form of access, right? So there are multi-layers of security we need to look at there as well. So just something I want to bring up. Thanks.
Bertrand?
Yeah, just to add a bit, I think, I agree with Lionel on the standards. I think it's very important for.
By the way, in terms of standard, the 3GPP release 18 expected Q2 2022 has been delayed to stage 2 to Q1 2023 and stage 3 to Q4 2023. So they are 1 year late, 3GPP.
Yeah, so standards like 3GPP. I mean, Open RAN is open. It's a standard almost. We can say there's different schools or trends of thoughts in terms of how to use Open RAN or when to use it, etc. I think it's it has pros and cons. I'm not here to advocate one or the other, but I think it's also well documented and standardized to a certain extent. So I think CSPs have a choice now between using proprietary technologies or trying also to use more open standards and stitch them together. The challenge is to stitch them together, and that's a big job in itself, and it raises the security aspect. Or alerts, I would say. One thing I wanted to say also on the possible role of CSPs with regards 5G for enterprises. I mean, we see, we are anticipating a lot of applications, enterprise applications using 5G, private 5G networks. What I wanted to say is that it's quite complex to build a 5G network. So I would say the expertise is with the CSPs. So you could imagine the CSP being, acting as a consultant or offering a private 5G network as a service to these enterprises, rather than let the enterprise build their own 5G networks. If that makes sense. So I see a role with CSPs to be encouraging, how private 5G network will be rolled out, interconnected, operated, etc. So I see it as a new technology and a new possible revenue earner for CSPs.
Matteo, for Cato, 5G could be a future possibility.
Certainly, the growing and the faster on the speed of the network is an advantage for a company in a position of Cato that delivers services SD-WAN and security services from the cloud, because as soon as the enterprise can access the easiest way and fastest way to access data from remotes, as soon as the Cato backbone becomes important. So for us, it's an advantage from the numbers you shared with the increasing of the tests and pilots and real network built on 5G. On the other side, the fact that we are working on layer 3 and above, we are transparent. So we are protecting customers. We do deliver one of the services that we deliver, and we'll answer more properly in the next question, presumably, is the zero trust network access. The fact that I just mentioned, I was in the hotel tonight. I'm in this hotel today. I will be in the train later on, and my client allows me to access any network in a more secure way, and I can access only the application my company allowed me to access. So doesn't care if it comes from 5G, who is not secure enough, not standardized enough, because we do protect any connection from anywhere. So really the transparency of the connection and the fact that it allows enterprises to move to cloud and to allow access to remote user is an advantage for any company in a position of Cato. So we are definitely happy to see the numbers increasing.
So we have touched 5G and the mobile networks. Let's move to the fixed one. The beginning of the panel, we mentioned multiple SD-WAN offerings that are today present in the market, but I cannot chair a panel like this one without mentioning SASE, the Secure Access Service Edge, which is a concept, let's say, conceived 3 years ago by 2 Gartner researchers and published in a quite famous, I could say, Gartner report in August of 2019. It's clear that I have to again give the floor to Matteo, to Cato Networks, what says SASE means today in terms of reality. Do we need something more than a Gartner report? I don't say we need a standard, because it's not a matter of standard, but at least do we need a general framework document? And by the way, MEF announced for 2022 a document related to MEF, to SASE, the W117, and as well as a document related to Zero Trust Network Access, the W118. So, Matteo, Cato Networks, what are the possibilities that today we can offer to an enterprise connecting, using SASE, and how we improve the existing scenario of SASE with a general framework, security, and so on?
Yeah, that's it. That's my question. First of all, SASE, it exists, is a reality. In Italy, we have about 100 customers that are using SASE every day. We just released yesterday a use case for a very large enterprise and manufacturing company called Monte Carlo. They work in the automotive market that connected 23 sites everywhere in the world and about 600 mobile users. SASE, it exists, but it's based on, it's very important that SASE is we are understanding perfectly what Gartner said SASE is. SASE has been invented by Cato in 2015, 7 years ago. Only in 2019 has been recognized by Gartner as a consistent architecture, and they gave the name of SASE. The 4 pillars, which means you have to be in cloud, everything has to be in cloud. If there's something on-prem, is not SASE. Have to be converged. The convergence is between SD-WAN and security. Shouldn't be only SD-WAN and security for another provider, should be from the same provider. Have to be for any kind of edge. The IoT mentioned before, sites, mobile user, we don't care about which edges are you connecting to this Cato infrastructure, and then to be everywhere. Shouldn't be only one point of presence, one point of presence on the cloud here in Rome, and another one, I don't know, in France, and that's all. It is not connecting each other. Those are the 4 pillars. Why those 4 pillars are important? Very simple, because you have to rely, the customer have to rely on one single infrastructure with a high SLA agreement. So I have to be in a range between 99.99 as we are, 5 times 9. Have to be from everywhere, from any edges, and have to be a full managed service. It shouldn't be like I sent you 10,000 boxes and you put the boxes everywhere. No, it's a cloud service. And this is mandatory. Shouldn't be differently. Otherwise, you are back in the previous world when everything was complex and CIO and CISO have to spend all their time to choose the platform, to maintain the platform, to update the platform. When there is a new malware, when there's a new problem, it's automatically update the entire backbone. And the enterprise get automatically updated. They don't need to even to spend a second. They just read a weekly report that said we have just updated the infrastructure with a new signature, and that's all. And they keep themselves focused on the real problem they have. Build infrastructure, design the infrastructure, allow the business application to run anytime from everywhere in a secure way.
Matteo, you said one of the pillars is everything in the cloud. We know very well that in the market there are offering with a SASE label which don't respect this, let's say, criterion. You didn't reply to me whether Cato is in favor or not of a document which summarizes what is SASE.
Oh, that's another, yeah, that's a good question. We're not against the standardization. Standardization usually comes later.
Standardization is a very strong word.
Yeah, definitely.
They say better definition.
Yeah, but usually comes when the business is always faster. It's always like that. Business is always faster, and customer and enterprises have to answer to their need today. They shouldn't wait until there is a standard or there is a framework. Gartner just did one thing in 2019 when they decided to give a name of this kind of infrastructure, get the name of SASE, said to the customer, try to choose your SASE partner based on the 4 pillars I mentioned. Obviously, all the players that were in the existing market with a lot of appliances in the stock, and that they shouldn't change in a second, of course. So they try to build their own version of SASE. That sometimes it fits the pillars and sometimes not.
Let's give the
yeah, sure, sorry. I'm enthusiastic about my technology.
Lion.
Yeah, no, Frick. The question from Alessandro. So do I support or do not support a framework? So within my team and my organization, right, we follow frameworks, right? But as carriers ourselves, we always like to have USPs, right? Unique selling propositions. We want to have differentiators, right? But at the same time, be able to say, hey, look, we are very stable because we follow this particular framework. So I want to say we follow frameworks, we like frameworks, but on top of that, we must never be rigid because there is an existing framework and purely follow within that framework. Coming back to the point of finding out what the customer requires, adding on to what an existing framework is extremely critical from a security setup standpoint, right? Yes, SASE lives in the cloud. Yes, I'm sure we all use a lot of Netscope, Zscaler, right? Is that all the security you require within that framework? No, because just like the example I gave, right? One of my customers telling me, hey, I think I might be getting attacked internally. Then that framework wouldn't work anymore, will it? Right? So you need to think and be agile and solution correctly to meet the customer's needs, right? And learning this information now that, hey, look, there is from a particular country within an organization, you are still getting attacked. These are the sort of information we get as a global service provider. And this is something we can then share with our other customers as well. So this is really our approach, right? This is Singtel's approach when it comes to adopting framework and how we manage frameworks as well.
Bertrand, the Blue Planet perspective on SASE, the fixed network.
So on SASE, well, I would say on standards in general, we do like standards and we do follow standards very much. We have a position usually which is not to stick with one standard, but to adopt, a series of plugins or adapters, we call them, so that we track and follow and adapt to the standards as they evolve. That's for our software. On SASE itself, I think what we do see is security in the cloud being an important topic. We see also a lot of other applications moving to different clouds, and we see a need to orchestrate the multiple clouds or cloud options that a CSP is using, not just for SASE, but for other applications, be it, for example, on the network functions, that are also getting pushed into clouds. So our role, if you want, is to orchestrate how the applications are moved into multiple clouds. So they're not restricted and they're being very protected.
Thank you, Bertrand, before closing, I'd like to address a different and last, let's say, issue in terms of, let's say, a business model, a partnership. I was discussing with a SASE vendor this issue, and I was criticized because when I said that in terms of business model, now the scenario is much more complex than it was some years ago. In the old days, it was very simple. There was the vendor, the service provider, and the customer. Today, the situation, I believe, is much more complex. I don't know how consider, let's say, Palo Alto and Cato, are they vendor or service provider or both? And the partnership, which affects, of course, the business model. The partnership we are seeing are always a constant of the telecom industry. I believe there is none who is not even Microsoft and Google can say I can go on a technology, a service alone. So to my panelists, partnership, how Singtel, Cato, Blue Planet consider the partnership and the evolution of the business models, plural, in 2022, 2025.
Yeah, I think, I mean, from my perspective, you're not going to find one vendor doing everything, so you have to partner. From a technology partner, we work with other technology partners. That's why standards are important. It's so that we can, interoperate or interface. And we do see, in order to build complex solutions such as, 5G, network slicing, etc., you need to have, especially if you go with Open RAN standards, you need to be able to work with multiple partners. So I see, clearly an importance to be able to work with others, who are very, very niche and very competent in one piece of the technology, of the puzzle, if you want. And I also see a need for, or a role for, integrators or sometimes CSPs to be able to stitch the different technologies together and provide an end-to-end solution. And again, that can be a CSP. I know that the skills required are different than traditional skills that we have in telcos, but I'd see definitely a role there.
Yeah, maybe I can pick up from that as well. So I think I'm going to keep it short. Really, I think our general strategy in Singtel and as I source for partners would certainly be to look for the best of breeds, number one, right? And I think that is really key in this day and age, right? If you're not on the top right-hand corner of Gartner, we have to evaluate a lot more. Number two, right? As the other speakers from the other topics spoke about, there is that need. The customers are very hungry to be able to get things fast, very quickly, do it themselves. This is very important and critical for us as well. So this partner needs to be able to allow us, through the integration, be able to set up systems to where almost a DIY self-service, right, have different APIs. So these are some of the prerequisites as well as we select our partners, right, as we build our platforms to provide these services to our customers. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it short there.
Yeah, even from the previous presentation I heard the words that cloud is here to stay. So you, in any way, you need to deal with service provider. There's no chance for not moving from buying piece of hardware, integrating piece of hardware, rather than the way of today, which is getting the service from the cloud, clicking the button and receive the service. I think that it will push the, in our point of view, that will bring a lot of simplification for telcos as well as for the end customers, more control, which is something important as well, more value, more quality, because the service provider will be much better in providing service rather than a piece of hardware that somebody else have to maintain and keep update. And definitely, at least faster in in delivering the services, because if you get it from the cloud, they're already pre-configured. So you need only to focus, and we'll push you to focus on where the value is, the real values, which is the consultancy services and such things. And also the ones that has been mentioned several times today, which is the last mile, the 5G and the infrastructure to provide access, which is still the digital divide. I live in a country where the digital divide is a huge problem. I live near Varese, which is one of the most industrial areas of Italy. I tell you, I have problem to access from internet from home. We have an ADSL where I live. Can you imagine? In one of the most developed places of the world. So this is a lot of space to have you as a telco, to have you involved in I guess the level of the quality of the access, and then consultancy services, because nobody will be able to take this. I mentioned Netflix, but it's not easy as Netflix, of course. So you need consultancy, you need partner as the telcos are, that allowed you to choose the right clouds, because not every cloud are similar. So I think it's good for everybody. We'll increase your revenue, we'll increase our revenue, we'll increase the quality, the security, and the access of the customer. Well, the problem is only advantages.
Thank you, Matteo. Is there any question to the panelists from the audience? If you don't see me, please, Valentina.
Yeah, so I understand that Cato will be able to cover a lot of security for different user cases. Is it possible now or already? Like, for example, are you also following IoT user cases? Or if not, are you planning to acquire some companies that are especially in security for IoT?
Okay, that's a very good question. We are a cloud. Thanks for the question. We are a cloud service provider. So we have our cloud. From our cloud, we do provide the firewall as a service. We do provide secure web gateway, intrusion prevention, CASB, anti-malware, next-gen, DLP, zero trust network access. So let me say that is almost the full stack of security. And we don't mind about from where protocol, where parts the connection comes from. So we don't need to buy companies to provide additional services. We don't need to buy, everything is code built and developed and maintained by Cato. So we just need to understand the protocol. We just need to understand from where the connection comes from. We just closed a deal in France. It's a deal with for a company that is taking care of the old people with equipment at the home of the people, and this equipment are integrated as well. So it depends, of course, any case have been considered, but so far we don't care about what kind of port or protocol are we connected, which is different than Zscaler mentioned. But Zscaler doesn't only support internet connection. They cannot integrate an IoT platform.
The issue of partnership comes back.
Excuse me?
With this question, the issue of partnership comes back. So Cato or Palo Alto or Zscaler can consider a partnership with a company specialized on IoT for a specific market segment. Definitely.
We're cloud. So if there is any company that want to integrate their infrastructure in the Cato backbone and use Cato services for securing the accesses, as well as providing SD-WAN services for high availability and speed of the network, they can just contact us and do a test. We'll ship the socket, and they do the test in minutes, and we'll see if it works or not. And if it doesn't, is our engineer, our software, everything is from Cato. So it's minutes, maybe hours.
Any other question?
Sorry, I know the question was for Matteo from Cato, but Singtel can do it all too. and we can also do it on-prem as well. And also we can develop softwares for applications if we need to. Just have to add that in.
Thank you, Lion. Any other question? So time is running out. Lunch is coming. So a very flash comment from all of you on the topics we discussed. Who likes to start?
let me finish. Yeah,
So,
thanks.
very
Let me
short,
start.
flash.
Very short. First of all, thanks a lot. I think we discussed it. I learned a lot of things. So thanks to my colleagues here. And really a pleasure to present Keto and independency, that you need to focus the independency between the infrastructure itself and security and SD-WAN. Choose an SD-WAN and security solution that allowed you to choose the best partner, hardware and technological partner as a telco.
No, yeah, thanks. Yeah, just to close, I think, you know, a few years ago, we would not be talking about security at a wholesale conference. So I see that, you know, security is definitely, you know, part of the portfolio and the priorities, the concern. And I think that we will be talking more and more about 5G as well in the coming years, because that will also be a very important topic. So even if it's mobile, it still concerns the, you know, the audience. So I think that we'll hear more about it.
Yeah, no, fantastic, absolutely. So I mean, on this particular topic, 5G and cybersecurity. So yeah, certainly I think fellow carrier partners here, right, and potential partners. So come to us, right? I think 5G is certainly growing. It's not in all areas yet, so we are still forming the alliance. In Asia, we are strong, right? We have got mobile alliance, we're there, right? But we are continuously looking for more partners, right? And with these partners as well, it's not only, as I mentioned earlier on, it's not only 5G we are looking at. We're certainly looking for partners who require lease circuits, IPLCs, E-lines, and all that. Ultimately, these are the transport layers, right? On the layer one that will be carrying data between, you know, the different continents, right? So we are continuously looking for partners. If you need some of our circuits, we've got them. We might need some of yours as well, which you own. So yeah, come to us. You know where our booth is. We're over there. So I think we are really looking to strengthen our partnership and to look for new partners as well.
Thank you to all of you, and please join me in thanking the panelists for this panel. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.